Recording to the cloud.
And we're here.
Great. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome, Sally. Thank you for joining us. I guess just to start off, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and
okay
for the group?
Sure. So thanks for having me this evening. Thanks to Jess for the invite from all of you. My name is Sally Gore, and somebody has a, why can I still hear that? And I'm in a I'm in a radio station at the moment, which would not be normal, but it just worked out that way. I manage the Research and Scholarly Communication Services Department at the Lamar Suter Library, where Jess also works. We're part of the UMass Chan Medical School. And I've been in the library since 2005. And I have had, I don't know how many different jobs in the library, but this particular job I've had probably about the last 4 years. Before that, immediately before I was in the library, I worked for our Clinical and Translational Science Center. So I worked in the library for 10 years, and then I went and worked for them for like 3 years, and then I came back to the library to do this job that I'm doing now. And it was a good little break in things. I was really interested in evaluation and tracking research impact and things like that. And we just kind of had a fledgling little aspirations to do this within the library itself. So I pitched my skills to our Translational Science Center, and then and I'd been their liaison for a number of years out of the library. And so they said, sure, come on over. So I did that a bit, and it was great. I was able to really kind of focus on that aspect of work, the evaluation aspect of bibliometrics and things like that, that now my department, I could come back to the department, and we've pretty much developed a pretty good service around that. So it was a nice change of pace for me. And it was good learning experience and all that. But before that, I've been embedded in research teams as an informationist. I kind of didn't manage the research and I didn't manage the scholarly communications department because it really wasn't a department. But when we were kind of just becoming something, I sort of ran that for a little bit. And before that, I was a reference librarian, and before that, I was consumer health librarian. So I've done it all, and I've done it all at UMass, which I never would have imagined, but but it's been really great. And so because it's allowed me to just explore lots of things and dip my toe in things and find what I really like to do. And so yeah, it's been that's what I do day to day. I have a department. We're down one person right now, but when I have a full staff, I have 2 data services and scholarly communication librarians, 1 institutional repository librarian, 1 part-time person who helps with our institutional repository, and the archivist are all in my department. So yeah, that's what I do. Primarily, we do a little bit of lots of things. We do a lot of reporting, research impact reporting, both for like departmental reviews and just tenure and promotion packages that people need to pull together. We do, the repository is just a big beast in its own thing and has all kinds of stuff that takes a lot of our time for lots of different things. And we do a lot of things around mandates that come down, particularly from NIH, because the med school itself is probably 75% of our research funding comes through the form of different grants from NIH. So along with that comes a lot of things around public access mandates and things like that, that we help people make sure when they're doing their progress reports, that they're all up to speed on their publications. and that they're available as they need to be available. And we troubleshoot copyright and authors' rights things for them in that regard. And do instruction, mostly to our biggest group of people that we serve on the campus are the PhD students in the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, and all the researchers from that school. That's our biggest group of people, and all the administrative staff that helps them. So yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of different hats.
It is. And for me personally, this is like my third career, and it's the one I've stayed in the longest by far. And mostly because of that, because it's a lot of different hats. I get to do a lot of different things, and so I don't ever really get bored or in a rut. And the one time I did get in a rut, I was able to transfer out to another department for a little bit and then come back to the library. So it's worked out well. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little more about, I guess, your journey to librarianship? You mentioned a few other careers before that.
So I went to school a long time ago. I went to I'm from Virginia. Originally, I went to James Madison University, and I was studying exercise physiology, and I wasn't a very disciplined student, and I switched majors. I was a philosophy major, and then I went to seminary, and I was ordained as a clergy person, and I did that for about 10 years. And then I didn't want to do that anymore. And it's kind of a funny story. I was working for a stainless steel manufacturing company in Portland, Maine, and doing kind of HR stuff, doing whatever it may be, but it kind of a lot of HR stuff and computer stuff, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I left church work. And I started running. And because a friend of mine who I worked with, he was a runner, and he was like the president of the Maine track club or something. And so it just got me into running, which I don't do anymore, as you can tell. And like that whole process of running just it reignited my whole love of physiology and exercise physiology and all that sort of stuff that I had as an 18-year-old when I was started college. And so I went back to school, and I got another bachelor's degree in exercise physiology at the University of Southern Maine. Then I got a graduate degree in it from Ithaca College. And when I was working on my thesis and my last credits, and I did an independent study. This is kind of a cool story about libraries. So I went to a conference, an exercise science conference, and people were presenting their papers, and the grad students were presenting their papers. And lots of people had presented all kinds of things. And this one woman presented her research, and she had done I can't remember all the details, but she'd done basically a study where it was sort of a strength test. She'd use had one group that didn't use a supplement and another group that did use a supplement, and kind of compare, right? Something like that, something on those lines. And, but she only had women in her study. And and she titled the study, "The Effects of whatever it was she was using, creatine or something, on muscle strength and blah, blah, blah." And basically she never said in women, right? And some professor in the audience really called her out on it. And I thought, well, that's weird, because I've heard about a dozen other studies that only had men in the study, and they never said it was about men, and they never got called out about it. So I went back to my to one of my professors, and I needed some credit. So I did this whole independent study where I went through, and this is 2001. And so I didn't have the kind of data, I didn't have the tools that I have today in my library work. So I had to sit in the library and pull down, bound copies of journals. And I like looked at every single title of this study. And I kind of figured out this trend of what the heck was up with that. And it took me down this way long, windy road about linguistics and cultural studies and, just being in the library and publishing in general. I thought it was really interesting. And I looked around, and I was at school at Ithaca in upstate New York, and Syracuse has a library science program. And so I noticed that like linguistics was in the information science program there. So I made an appointment with the dean of the library science program there at the time. And I went up and I talked to her one day, and she just told me all about it. And she was like, you could just be a librarian. And I was like, wow, because at the time, and I'll tell my age, I wasn't quite 40, but it's almost 40. And I was thinking, I didn't know that I had it in me to do a PhD at that time. I thought it was old. I thought it was too old. Okay, now fast forward years later, I wasn't that old. But at the time I thought I was a little too old. And so when she said, you can do this. And I thought, well, wow, that could be kind of cool. I can get my degree, in a year and a half or something, and then just go and get paid to be in the library where I spend all my time anyway. And so I actually never made the connection to be a health sciences librarian, despite the fact I was doing physiology. That wasn't my connection. I got in library school. I just enjoyed everything I was doing. I did a lot more of that cultural studies stuff because I thought it was interesting. And I really wanted to be a news librarian. I thought that would be super cool to work for NPR, like those librarians that they had, or for a newspaper. Just looking that stuff up, I thought it would just be fascinating. Work for CNN or something, ESPN, I don't know, something. And so I had to do an internship, as you all probably have to do. I had to do an internship my last semester of library school. And I was back living in Maine at that time and just doing my last classes online. And I called the librarian at the Portland Press Herald, and she said, Sally, I would love to have you do an internship with me, but I just think that wouldn't be the best thing because every library and every newspaper is getting shut down. It's like a dying field. And she said, I don't want to encourage you to do this job because it's just going to be hard. And I said, okay. And I thought, well, I had done an internship when I was in college in Portland at Maine Medical Center, the big hospital in Portland. I had done an internship there. And I said, well, they have a library. Let me call their library. And the library director said, absolutely, get over here. She's a dear friend to this day. And and that's how I landed as a health sciences library. And it's worked out really well. When I first went and got to the medical school, I hooked up with a researcher who was doing some physical, like doing some research around behavioral science and physical fitness. So I actually did get to work as an exercise physiologist for her as a side job while I was also a librarian, which was kind of cool. But since then, understanding science is very helpful for sure. Understanding research. I've always felt like I had a little bit of a leg up on some of my colleagues, and that I had to write a thesis. I had to do original research. I had to do that kind of stuff. So at least I understand that process that a lot of our folks are going through. And not everybody in our library has done that. But it's not a deterrent in any way to enter the field, I think. I do. So I mentioned earlier, I'm down a staff person. So I'm thinking a lot about what I need for that person. And the person who left that position recently had her PhD in neuroscience and was a a scientific writer for a bunch of years, and then went back and got a library degree, and then came to the library. Now she's back being a scientific writer, and happy. I'm sad, but I'm happy for her. And but I'm thinking about the skill set that she brought was like really so spot on to what we do. But it's, how many people are out there that do that? Not very many. So, I was talking with my library director, my boss the other last week sometime, and I said, I never thought I would say this in my career, but I actually said, could we possibly hire someone who doesn't have a library science degree? I said, because I think if I could find somebody with research experience, I could teach them how to be a librarian. And that's not a position I ever thought before. I'm a very strong advocate for our profession and for being a librarian with stuff, but I'm having a really hard time finding people with the right background. And so I'm not sure. It's a bit of a conundrum at the moment. If any of you have science backgrounds and you're about to graduate and you have the slightest interest.
So you would need someone specifically with a science, like a bachelor's in science, some kind of thing.
I think it's just it's helpful, but if I just have somebody, so it's a data sciences and scholarly communications position. So if you have some knowledge in the publishing scholarly communications realm, if you have some background in data and working with data and things like that.
Well, if someone from Rutgers had the specific like data sciences concentration, that would be beneficial, kind of. So,
oh yeah, for sure. Or, one of Kim, the person who was in this position, one of her really strong suits was writing. And if I could find somebody who knew scientific writing or knew that kind of a thing.
When you say scholarly communication, you mean like different academic journals, articles?
Yeah, understanding about publishing, understanding about open science, preprints, peer review, copyright, all that kind of stuff. It's like a huge thing. And it's really interesting right now, given that what happened with COVID and science and research by medical research, that in order to find a vaccine, in order to develop a vaccine for COVID as fast as we could, they had to take down on all those barriers that were generally in place with publishers. And
so you mean stuff that has to do with like open access?
Exactly. So all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Falls in the scholarly communications realm.
Do you have like a personal opinion on open access? I've been doing a lot of open access stuff in my classes over the last couple of weeks, and I have a strong opinion on it at this point. So I'm just interested to see.
You tell me your opinion. You tell me your opinion. Since you're learning it, I want to hear your opinion.
Okay, so I'm personally completely for open access as long as there are barriers set in place so that the authors and writers and researchers still get paid a fair and equitable amount of money, because that is a major issue. But if we pay, the publishers are making more money than most like full like Forbes companies that we know are making. They're making at least 40% more than like the writers, the authors that are getting anything. So with medical information, I know that there's a lot of false information that goes into medical publishing and stuff like that, like false facts. People are just getting fake news everywhere when it comes to medical stuff.
Yeah.
So if there was more open access medical information from these scholarly journals and databases, I think that it would benefit a lot of people. That's my opinion.
That's good opinion. I agree with a lot of it. So what happened with COVID and what happened about, I know, 2008. So how long ago that was, 13, 14, actually 2006, Congress did not pass a law, but people who get NIH funding have to make their research available to the public, right? And this is also moving towards data. Starting January of next year, people will have to make their data available if they have funding behind it. Their data management planning, their plans, data management plans, data management sharing plans, all of that is going to have to be part of a grant proposal. And this is actually a thing that we're really working towards in the library, how we can support that for our researchers. But even within the public access mandate, which was passed by Congress in 2008, and just with NIH, and then a few years later with NSF, and then I don't know all the other branches of science, but those two in particular, people are still allowed to, we're still allowed to have an embargo period, right? Because the publishing is a business, just like other businesses, and they're very well established, and they provide a service that, they deserve to be compensated for sure. They certainly, they do not deserve the crazy inflation of prices that they've done over the last 20 years by any means, but that's not really justified. But I know people who work for publishing, and they're as nice as we are. So, it's not that awful. But that, you mentioned that cycle of people pay for their research, and then they have to pay to have it published, and then we have to pay to get it back in the library. That cycle has to be broken, and we're well on the way to breaking it.
Not even just that, but when you mentioned it being expensive for libraries to get it, like I was just at a conference where we were talking about whether the Jersey Clicks, the NJ state librarian page, will get access to more than just EBSCO hosts, whether we're going to switch to Gale or we're going to stay with EBSCO, because if you have EBSCO, you can't afford having Gale too. They're
exactly right. And
publishers, there's so much money that you have to put into accessing vital information, which I think
exactly right. And I have no experience in my career working in public libraries, but it is basically the exact same thing in academics, though just to a different audience, and it has different effects depending upon the audience. But what happened with COVID, and so this is what's really cool for me as a ScholComm librarian. I just think it's fascinating to see what's going to happen with this, because two things happen with COVID. One, the bigger publishers, Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, Nature, they dropped their paywalls so that people could see the research, right? Because it was so important. The public good of seeing research, when you have it takes a pandemic, but at least something happened, right? And like a lot of things, once you let that out, what the saying, genie's out of the bottle, you can't get it back in. It's that kind of thing. And it's hard for them now, when you've seen so much good come out of this research, to then turn around and say, we're taking it all back, right? People aren't going to stand for it. So that was one thing that happened. But at the same time, the other thing that happened was the growth of preprints. And so preprints, if you don't know, are the early research that's not yet peer reviewed, not there, but there are all kinds of preprint servers. They're vetted, that they're credible ones that are vetted, and the work is out there, and people understand that it's a preprint, that it hasn't gone through peer review, but it got results of early work out there so people could quickly build on stuff. And we saw what happened. We got a vaccine in record time. Science doesn't happen. So it just does not happen that fast. I think the bench to bedtime normal drug development time is about 12 years between when someone discovers something in the lab before it becomes prescribed, passes FDA approval. So, it was miraculous for anybody who's been a part of this realm for any time to just see it happening. It was really amazing. For me, having done a few years in the clinical research side with our Translational Science Center, to see that whole concept of translational science that the benchtop researchers are right there, and the clinical researchers are taking samples from patients, and they're like everything's working together to make it really fast. That was actually happening on my campus. It wasn't just a theory or a concept anymore. We saw it happening. And that was kind of cool. That was really cool. And it produced, so our institutional repository librarian started to track the publications, preprints and regular publications on COVID from our authors. So say we closed down in mid-March of 2020. The first publications were already out by the end of April 2020. That's how fast this was happening. And so that's just such a phenomenal shift in scholarly communications that who knows what's going to happen, down there. I have no idea, but I'm just like watching and reading every day because I think it's just fascinating, and it's going to be like really transformative in terms of how science has been done in the past. So that's really cool part of my job. I like that a lot. I don't know, that was a way long-winded of my thoughts on open access. And of course, built on open access used to just be get the publications out there. Now it's open science. We're talking about open science. We're talking about everything being out, from the methods to the data to the pubs to the preprints to everything being shared. And
even open source, like some of the technologies,
all of it, right? Exactly.
Like
coding is out there. It's, and here's the part where I feel my age a little bit, in that I'm not quite as idealistic as I might have once been, because I don't, it's kind of like Elon Musk buying Twitter, right? I mean, you can have that great idealistic opinion of free speech, and it's great. It's good. But you can also have a pretty realistic understanding of what happens, and not everybody is genuine. Not everybody is out for the good of everyone, of course. And we see that every day. And so it happens in science as well. And it happens in academia and happens in research. And now we're also confronted. The other, I guess, big thing of COVID was this huge, all the conspiracy stuff, but also just a huge distrust in science in general, and a distrust in evidence. And I think that's that situation is really a great opportunity for librarians, whether we are in the sciences or in the public libraries, helping credible health, credible political information, all of this.
I do that every day.
Yeah.
I'm constantly.
Yeah.
Someone will walk up to me, show me an article on their phone, and I'll look at them and I said, "Did you get this off Facebook?" And most of the time they say, "Yeah." And I look at them, I'm like, 90% of the time, this is not factual information. We're gonna look this up and find you what you actually want to know.
Exactly. And I think that's a great opportunity, not only in the public facing thing, like the real public, like the public libraries for sure, and also just in school media for people who are doing that and teaching young people how to do it, just critical thinking skills in higher education, and even at the med school. I mean, our students aren't, sure, they got good grades and they got in med school, but they're not the brightest bulbs in every little aspect. I tell you, because they're really good. I mean, they're good. They're good students, all of them. But they're also good at memorizing things, and they're good at taking tests. That's what they're really good at. Because that's what medical education is a lot about.
Yeah, I took a ecology course, and it was like a blend of 3 different disciplines, and one of them was virology, and it was one of the units, and I had like 3 different professors. So, and she told us that evolutionary virology is not required in medical school. And you would think that it would be, because how a virus evolves and moves from host to host sounds like something important, but it's not required, and it's not.
Yep.
It's more of like an elective, like, oh, cool, like I'll take that. It's like me taking history.
Exactly. Yeah. You need anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology, and you need these really basic skills to be a physician. But because physicians look up everything too, which is why we're there, to kind of help them at least know, like, good Lord, look up here, not, as you say, don't be going over there on Facebook for your.
Well, there's even AI now, artificial intelligence, that helps doctors diagnose patients.
Absolutely.
Which absolutely blows my mind. I read this really long Forbes article the other day where they were talking about how artificial intelligence will not take over everybody's jobs. Like, people still have jobs, et cetera, but here are all of the jobs and like areas of professionalism that are benefiting greatly from AI. And I saw medical under there, and it said doctors often get diagnoses from different artificial intelligence, like translation systems.
Yep.
I stopped in my tracks and I said, they make how much money a year for AI to tell them what's wrong with someone?
Yep.
Gotta pay off that med school debt somehow.
I stopped in my tracks and I said, no way. Meanwhile, we're out here, the pioneers of like finding factual, credible information and facilitating it to people. And then the people who are like,
check its network connection.
That was
Sorry, my Alexa started talking.
Alexa was
I
answering us.
just
I
can't.
wish I could tell you 20 years into my profession that 20 years into your profession, you won't still be doing that, but you will.
No, it definitely will be. Especially working with the public. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's working. It's just it's being a part of society. It's just the society that we live in. Ooh, I'm hearing the music. Can you hear it?
Okay.
Ooh, they're just now starting. I thought they started at 7:30. Oh, well.
I've been hearing it for a while, actually, just like faintly.
Oh, that's just the radio. So the radio is broadcasting over here, but the live concert is over here. And let me tell you, if you ever are, I volunteer at this here radio station. I do a show every other Wednesday night. And this happens. And you're in here trying to do a show, and that's happening out there. And yeah, you're trying to like, I can't hear anything. Yeah.
So obviously you do more things than just your job, though. Do you want to talk about the radio station and your mandolin playing?
Would you like me to?
And some more? Yeah, talk about all your hobbies, please.
So here, this was kind of related. So this is a community radio station. So it's a public radio station, but it's community supported, right? We don't have any NPR funding around here. We're all a bunch of volunteers, except for our like general manager guy. But we were actually started, this particular radio station is right next to Clark University. So originally it was the college's station. And it was founded by Robert Goddard, who, if you happen to be a space person or a rocket person, you know that Robert Goddard is the father of modern rocketry in the United States. And he was a professor at Clark many years. In fact, NASA's research center outside Bethesda in Maryland is the Goddard Space Center. Named it. He's from Worcester and he went to school there, taught here forever, which is really kind of cool. The rocket scientists started the radio station. And a number of years ago, I've loved music. I've always loved music. And I was looking for something to do to volunteer. And I ran into Troy, who's the person here that runs he's the one paid person here. And their library was a mess. It's still a mess. It's like a giant room of Lord only knows how many CDs and records and everything. And they're just kind of piled on top of everything. And many years ago, someone had started like just an Excel spreadsheet as their database. There was no way I was going to tackle that. But I said, okay, I'll just help you log stuff in. It's fun. I can do that, log stuff in. So I did that for a little while. New records would come in, I'd log them in, try to put them somewhere, alphabetically somehow. And then DJs would take them off and they never put them back where they belong. But that's just how it is. And then a spot was open. They needed somebody to do a show, and it was open for a long time. So Troy said, Sally, do you want to learn how to do that? And I was like, sure, cool. How fun is that? So every other week I sit here for 2 hours and just play music I like to hear. And it's really pretty cool. And I brought local artists in to play live, and we interview and we do a bunch of stuff. And I do play music myself. Jess came to one of our little gigs last summer. I play the mandolin and the guitar and the drums and stuff, but mostly the guitar right now. I take lessons of guitar. That's what I kind of focused on. But for many years, I played the mandolin, which is kind of why I was interested in this band. Irish guys with banjos and stuff. So what else do? I do a lot of artwork. And then I guess, so a professional, because I think Jess, you had mentioned this too about, so I'm really involved in the Medical Library Association. The professional service is huge with me. I think it's a really important aspect of being a librarian. It costs money. We don't get paid a lot of money, and that's always kind of a tension thing. But I think it's how we grow our profession. It's how I think we remain a profession. So I'm currently on the board of the Medical Library Association I go into New Orleans on Sunday for our annual meeting, and that's officially my last board meeting because I've been on for 3 years, and then I'm like, whoop. And but I'll do other things. I still have other things, of course, that I'm involved in. But I was involved in our regional chapter for years, still am. I was the president of that for a long time. I was president of our state chapter. So whatever your interest might be, I encourage you to, if it's academic libraries, to find your regional chapter of ACRL, public libraries, ALA, just find a place and get involved. It's usually, fortunately, affordable for students. There's lots of scholarships. There's lots of things available. And particularly the state and regional level, it doesn't cost much at all to be a member. And then there's always lots of support, financial support. So if you're not a part of that already, I totally encourage you to do so. I can't speak for all librarians in general, but I can say, or all library sects in general, but for the medical libraries and medical librarians, the network is phenomenal. One time I was driving somewhere or traveling somewhere, and I thought to myself, my car could break down anywhere in the United States, and I bet you I wouldn't be 30 miles from someone I know who knows someone I know, because of the Medical Library Association, because of where we are all over the country. And I say this to friends of mine who do lots of other things, like chaplain people from my seminary days and all that kind of stuff, or teachers or things. And it's so foreign to them. They're like, what? And I said, I think it's because the nature of libraries that we're networked, we always share. That's just how we, from interlibrary loan all the way to people being, networked together. We work together. We support one another and all kinds of things. And so I'd have to say that that's probably, I love my work. I love the intellectual challenges and and helping people and all that kind of stuff. But I also, as you can probably tell, I'm kind of a social, that kind of a person. And I like people, and that's probably the best. Well, I actually don't really like people all that much, but I like some people. I like dogs and I like animals. And I like people that I work with. That's who I like. Like general people in general, I don't particularly like. That's why I left the ministry. It's hard to help people that you don't. Anywho, but I really like the connection of our profession, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I know there's a lot of burnout talk, and we don't get paid anything, and we get kicked to the corner and all that. And there's truth to all of that. I understand it, but I also I once learned that the 3 most respected professions. This was a Pew Research thing. The 3 most respected and trusted professions in the country are firefighters, nurses, and librarians. And I've hung on to that ever since I heard that, because I think it says an awful lot about who we are and what we do. And so I'm happy to be part of it. And I'm glad that you guys are all like working towards it. Is anybody close to graduating? No. Halfway.
Close-ish, maybe like another semester for me. It depends if I take summer classes.
Take a break. Take a break if you need a break. I'm all about breaks. I'm all about fun. I'm all about enjoying what you do. Can you hear that music now? I can hear that. They are rocking. This is a soundproof radio studio. Believe it or not, that's how loud that music must be up there. They look fun. I'm gonna go out there and enjoy it. I snuck a beer into the studio. So you get out there. Actually, it's not sneaking. We can have them here, but I did bring one in. Gonna go have my beer and watch music. Yes. Any other questions or thoughts or things, comments, whatever?
I have a thought for your staff position. Have you considered hiring someone that does SciComm? Science communication?
Yes. So this was the aspect about Kim. This is why Kim got that job. So I had 3, and this is kind of interesting because I had 3 tremendously talented people who applied the last time this job was open. And they were 3 really different people. I mean, they had 3 different skill sets. So one person had a lot of data experience, and she mirrored a lot of Tess, who's already working in my department. And then the other person had a great passion for open access. And then Kim came with this background of scientific communication. She'd been a science writer for a long time. She had an understanding of research and the how research happens in a lab. She'd managed a lab for years and stuff. And when I interviewing them, they were all really great. They were all very strong candidates. And that's her skills complemented us rather than duplicated anything anybody was doing. And that's why she got the job. And I've talked to some library directors over the last few weeks. I spoke at a National Network of Library Medicine symposium on the research and librarians and research and stuff. And I was just talking about what we've done and some of the services we do and all this kind of things. And immediately, as soon as I finished my talk, like a few people that I knew from other medical libraries were like, Sally, can we just talk? And so the library director at Pitt and the library director at Texas A&M, they're like, we have these positions. What do we do? Like, we're trying to figure out the same thing. And I said this. So here's the conundrum that I have now. Once upon a time, you were looking for a reference librarian, and you could just hire a reference librarian, right? This is what you need to know how to do. And maybe you didn't even know all the databases, but you could learn them enough. You knew how to do reference interviews. You knew how to search for things. You knew how to talk to people and help. And now we're kind of charged with all these different sorts of things, and we're always trying to grow new services. And they're kind of based upon what we can do, right, as individuals. So it's a very different model managerially, like for me to try to figure this out of what do you do? Because when you hire someone with their skill set, and then you think, I'm going to build some programs around this person's skill set, but then that person leaves. And then you're like, okay, nobody else here has that skill set. Right. And these are definitely things that fall under the big umbrella of stuff we could be, it's relevant for what we're doing in our department. But when you lose that person, you lose that skill set. And this is hardly my library alone. This is happening everywhere. And so people are kind of struggling with, what do we do? How do you develop sustainable programs when they're really tied to when you're a small department? I mean, if you have lots of people, but we don't have lots of people, and so, and most libraries don't have lots of people, I mean, at least most specialized libraries like ours don't. And so it's an interesting thing. Nobody really has the answer to it. And we're just trying to kind of figure it out. But to your question, Nellie, I would say, I would approach this the exact same way as I did the last time. I would look at whoever came, whoever was applying. I'd look at their skills, and I would want them to be able to use, skills and interests and things to make the job what they want it to be, within the parameters of what we do in our department. I think that's the best for everybody. Actually, honestly, I don't want to force somebody to always have to do the same thing and never be able to explore what they might have an interest in. I felt that way for myself with, understanding the whole evaluation piece and learning that on my own. And then I'm also really interested in data visualization, and I've been able to kind of develop some things around that. And I'm not the kind of person just in general who's going to squelch anybody's interest that way. Who wants to work like that?
Yeah, I brought it up because my in undergrad there was a PhD student, or I guess she was a candidate at that point, who she works for Hank Green now. Who's like the author John Green's brother.
Yeah.
So, so
I know John Green, but I don't know. Yeah.
She's like a science communicator. So, and she happens to have a PhD in biological anthropology.
Yeah.
Besides, like, I thought that was really interesting about like how that's kind of like more of like the approaching to the public, more like social media kind of stuff.
It really is.
That would be like a skill that would be translatable into scholarly communication.
100%.
Opposite end.
Yes, because actually our graduate school of biomedical sciences, we have because once upon a time, everybody getting a PhD could just go into academia. You just, I graduated, I got a lab, and I just did. That's not the case anymore. It's like maybe 20% of our graduates can actually end up in a lab. Mm-hmm. So they're struggling to figure out what are all the other things we can do in our career when we have a PhD. And
I definitely see that all over like academia Twitter. And there's so many threads where it's like, I just quit my my tenure track job. What can I do? And then everyone replies
now. Exactly. And scientific communication is one of those things that we sort of that department can sort of steer. Our career development department in the PhD program, sort of, that's an option to help people do that. Which is why we don't have a writing center on our campus right now. It's something that there are 3 schools on our campus: the graduate school of nursing, the graduate school, the medical school, and the graduate school of biomedical sciences. And we don't have a writing center. And so that's a huge goal or a huge wish for us, how the library can support that, both in terms of physical space, and then in terms of staffing or working with the staff who would do that, could kind of help with that. So
I was thinking, because like I know MIT has a science writing program, which is kind of
Yep.
like that sort of thing. So maybe you could grab someone from there too.
I know. I tell you, I'm because I'm just not, sadly, I don't know what, this is another whole like pandemic thing. I sit and stare out the window of my office sometimes and wonder what has happened to the world. But we've had the great resignation, and a lot of people just don't want to, that I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to, go to that grind of working. I've had people ask me if they can work remotely, and I say no. I still believe a lot of the work that we do is about building relationships, and I just I'm open to being convinced, but I'm not convinced yet that that can happen.
No, I sort of agree. This is sort of a profession that's got to be on the grounds. It's
Right.
Libraries are community centers,
Exactly. And we have totally shifted. I mean, we've had huge shifts in how we work. Nobody in my department comes on site to work 5 days a week anymore. There's no need for that. And we've really learned how you can be flexible and how you can help, in that way. But I need people to be I need people to be present on site to do the work, of getting out and sitting. I've sat on this University Scientific Council for several years now, and it used to be that meeting was once a month, and you go and you sit around the big table, and and these are researchers I would never ever see any other time. I know, and they're like kind of big deal researchers, and just having my face in front of them or sitting next to someone and talking about, as Jess said, Sally, tell us why you work at the radio station. Like that kind of stuff happens. And that's how you build relationships, and that doesn't happen in the Zoom environment. So I'm really, our meeting is still Zoom. And yes, it's really convenient for a lot of people, but it's also not without a cost. And I'm kind of waiting to see, it's all, relatively speaking, this is all like so new and we're just working through it. But
I think Heather has a few questions for you too, but I just wanted to also, if you're ever in the Boston area, you should go to the Bebop, BEBOP. I was with my friends. One of them goes to MIT. And it's an Irish pub, and they have live music, I think every night, maybe.
All right, Jess,
we went on a
road trip.
Tuesday or Monday or something.
All right, Jess and I will road trip to the
Sounds good,
Bebop. We're going to go to the Bebop.
I can actually grab you the link while Heather asks her questions.
Throw it in there. The Bebop. One of my closest friends in grad school at Ithaca was from Ireland, and I love her to this day. And so my last big trip before COVID hit, I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is where she and her wife live now. And I got to have brunch with them and see them, and they told me places to go. And she just cracks me up every time we were talking. So this Irish peeps. Cool. Nice. So Heather, you had questions?
I don't know if that's the link.
Kayla,
I can remember Bebop. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
So
here it is.
I just had one more question.
Sure.
Everybody can-
That's it. I must have clicked on an ad.
you did. Oh, Bebop Boston. Cool. I'm there. Totally.
Okay,
there.
so to circle back, I really like that it took you like a bit of like jumping around to find your home in librarianship. I think that's really
Yes.
cool. A lot of the people that
It's
we've
not
spoken
that
with,
unusual.
yeah, a lot of the people that we've spoken with in the last year have told us that they kind of like always knew they wanted to be a librarian.
Really?
So you are, yeah, I'm pretty sure at least most of the people we've interviewed in this past year, like I know Sade Brown was like, I've wanted to be a librarian since I was like 12. Kate Jaggers, we interviewed her and she was like, my mom's a librarian. I've always wanted to be one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Never. No, I didn't. I didn't even know it. I mean, I love the library as a kid. I love the library.
Mhm.
In fact, speaking of science communicating people. So the guy, this is just a funny aside, the guy who is the head of the like science communication, blah, 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 something for NC State University. We somehow bumped into each other on Twitter one day. I don't know how. And it turned out we are from the same hometown, which is not that big of a town. And we went to the same public library in the same little neighborhood. And we've since like become buddies. Matt Shipman is his name. And he's really well known in like that whole science communication profession network. Matt Shipman. That's interesting though, that people, I loved libraries from the get-go, but it really was kind of like a light bulb moment when I was still in grad school for something completely different. But to think, oh my gosh, I could like, because I spent all my time in the library, and it was like, wow, I could just get paid to be here.
I feel that entirely.
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
that.
that's pretty good.
If I'm not working at the library, I'm doing
I know,
homework.
and
at
you
the
don't, and I
library.
don't, right. And like, if you go in academia, all you're doing is like hustling grants the whole time, like just trying to, keep going. And
Who wants publish and perish culture?
exactly, who wants that? I'll just help people publish or publish.
Exactly.
Much more low key.
Right. Then I go home and I go to
Maybe,
read.
and then maybe you could get acknowledged in there. Thank you.
Yeah,
Every
give a
time
little
that-
shout out.
I have been acknowledged in pubs. In pubs is very nice.
That's
And
fun.
I've gotten chocolates from grad students, and
Aw.
yeah, so it's always nice. They're very appreciative.
It really is refreshing to talk to someone that has jumped around, because I've definitely
Yeah.
never known what I wanted to
Jumped
do. I
around.
still can't pick a concentration. So
Well, I tell you, had I not stumbled onto this profession that and in the right place that allowed me to, as I said, have like about 6 different jobs within the one place, I don't know, I probably would have had 4 more professions by now. I just it just landed. And then after a while, you're there for a little while, and then you start getting older. And you're like, whoo, I better think about reality of life. I don't want to work till I die, so I better start thinking about that. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I mean, that's very it's also very inspiring and helpful for me. I don't know. I have had a day of just feeling like very burnt out, and also like I work in textbook publishing right now, which is fine, but just the feeling of being a little burnt out from all of that, and kind of hearing like, it's okay
yeah,
to jump around a lot, and it's nice to hear.
it really is. And I think the thing about a profession too is that there's so many like I had no idea when I went to library school how many different kinds of librarians there are. Like librarians are everywhere. Who knew? I had no idea.
Everywhere. It's
They're
awesome.
everywhere. Like they're in
cool.
pharmaceutical research companies. They're in, in fact, the library, this is also why it was really kind of cool. When I went to Syracuse to just talk to the person who was in the director of the department at the time, and she had started her career at CNN, like for real, CNN. And when CNN was just getting started, and she would tell me about us, they were like a little wall of them, librarians, and they each had about 6 monitors in front of them. And the news is like going, and they're having to look, check, and look stuff constantly the whole time. And I thought, that's the coolest job ever. I thought it was just fun. And I said, who knew? Who knew that happened? And then you just start to look around. There are librarians at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There are librarians at the, every kind of museum. There's librarians at zoos. There's everywhere. And it's just, I thought that this is just a really cool profession. So I think I'll stick it out for a little bit. There's librarians in radio stations, which is me right here in a radio station right now, but I'm not.
You mentioned did you catalog their like music category for them?
No, it's beyond hope. It's like, no.
I have like aspirations of like possibly one day working for a record label and like cataloging for them, because I really like doing stuff like that. So you saying that, I was like, oh,
okay, so that's professional, and so it's probably good. This is a community radio station. Did you hear that part? This is a bunch of volunteers. I won't even show you. I'm not even gonna take you on a tour because I just see boxes piled up. And oh my gosh, there's so much music back there. Actually, we're having, oh, Jess, there's a big record sale. Do you like records?
Yeah.
Are you the record sale Saturday, 10 to 4.
What? 10 to 4.
Here,
Okay.
Saturday, 10 to 4, right here. It's a big fundraiser it's a fundraiser. Plus, there's like thousands of records being sold. Thousands.
Well, Sally, related, how can we listen to your show on the internet?
You can. Wait, I'm going to put the link in right now. Look, there's the Bebop. Look at how cool that is. I'm definitely going there. Listen to that banjo. Banjo is a happy music. It's a happy instrument. I like it lots. All right. So I'm live Wednesday night, every other Wednesday, not this coming, because I was on last night, so not this coming Wednesday, but every other Wednesday. So you can stream live on that thing, or if it's not between 7 and 9 on Wednesday night, you can go to that link and you go to that link now and you could listen to my show from last night if you want.
Cool.
And it was a very good show. I'm very proud of last night's show. I call it the masterclass of songwriting. And so the genre of my show is singer-songwriters, a little folky, a little bluegrass, a little this, that, the other. And so I did 2 hours of like the greatest written songwriting songs you could ever imagine. I ran out of time. I'm gonna have to do it again and again. There's so many, but that was fun. So if you go to that link and you go back to the archive, you can find my show from last night, and you can listen. And you can also tune in live.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Sally, for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks you all. Thanks so much for the invite. Thank you, Jess, for like reaching out. It was so fun. I love to chat with anyone, but I enjoy chatting with folks who are new to the profession or getting ready to be in the profession. Just yesterday, I did the keynote for the new members of MLA. Our conference actually officially started yesterday, and so the virtual component, and then it's like kind of hybrid thingy, but there's also an in-person, thank the heavens, there's an in-person bit. And so I'm on my way to New Orleans on Sunday, and I'm super looking forward to it because I miss my friends that I have not seen for a couple of years. Be fun. Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoy.
All right. Yeah. Have a great time in New Orleans.
That sounds so much fun.
No worries.